Welcome to Spotlight. I'm your host, Fitzroy Prendergast. In this week's program, we'll be featuring the chairman of the Continental Baking Company Limited, Mr. Gary Hendrickson. Mr. Hendrickson, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you, Fitzroy. First of all, the only part of Gary that is found in my name is on the birth certificate. I've been called Butch all my life. Don't ask me why, I don't know. It had to be some great reason, and it wasn't because I was a good child.
Interesting. Well, I can see why. I'll tell you afterwards. Tell me, for the viewers who don't know much about Mr. Hendrickson, tell us a little bit about your parents and how you grew up and, where you were born and stuff like that.
Well, I actually was born, I was almost born here at Halfway Tree Road, but Mom made it to Nuttall in time. Had a wonderful upbringing. You couldn't ask for a better childhood. You couldn't ask for better parents. And at the time, I was able to watch my parents grow the business. My dad. I didn't see a lot of him because he worked long hours, very long hours, but he was always there, very supportive. What else could I say? We had a wonderful childhood. We're blessed as a family, and they were able to afford us certain things like summers in Ocherios. And I suppose summers in Ocherios back in the 60s, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was like going to New York.
Yes.
When you left Kingston and went to Ocherios, it was oh my.
Oh wow.
Yeah, oh wow. Uh-huh. So great memories.
Tell us a little bit about the embryonic stage of the business. I know your dad was involved in it, but from what you saw, how different was it then than now?
Well, that's hard to explain because I grew up in it, so the changes weren't as apparent to me as somebody who probably saw it in every 2 or 3 years. Today, it's far more mechanical, far more automated, because of the volumes that we made, compared to when my dad started. I would say, for example, mixers. He had one in his bread plant. We have 5. I think he could mix 500 pounds of dough. We can mix 2,000 pounds of dough every time we mix. And so the scale has changed. The size and the speed of the machine has changed, and the complexity of the machines are far, far ahead of 1952.
Now, your school life, because having grown up with a dad who was in business, some parents don't like their children to necessarily follow in their footsteps, want them to do their own thing. What was your inclination going to school?
Not to go to school. I don't think there's anybody, certainly not to my knowledge, that squandered the opportunity for education that I did. That's a fact. My parents did their absolute best and then some to ensure that I was properly educated. And while they were not successful at getting me to stay in the academic side of things, they were successful in getting me to gravitate towards this business of ours. And it's a business I love. I really enjoy it. I enjoy being in it. I enjoy being part of it. But my school years, I probably had too much fun, Fitzroy. I probably had way too much fun. They're great years. I mean, you think back now and say, man, I wish I was back in school again. Especially I had 4 years in boarding school, and those were 4 fantastic years.
Which school?
I actually went to boarding school in Miami.
Okay.
And they were great years. I can look back. I enjoyed them then. Now, looking back, I enjoyed it looking back even more than I enjoyed. I actually did enjoy boarding school.
All right. Having gone to school, what year did you decide that I'm going to focus my attention on being in dad's business? Right after school, or you had some different plans initially, and then?
Well, that'd be the true Chinese parent wanted something better for his children. It is part of our culture. He never forced the bakery business on us. As a matter of fact, while not actively discouraging us from following him, he had suggested the professions, medicine, law, and the like. But that doesn't mean he didn't want us to follow him in the business. I think in some ways he thought that if we were properly schooled, then we were better able to handle this business when the time came to take it from him.
All right. Now, the siblings around you. Tell us a little bit about your siblings and how, you guys got along, growing up.
Well, I used to beat up on my younger brother, Kevin. And maybe some people tell I probably still do. But no, I can't remember many negatives, Fitzroy. We just had a great family life, My mother kept everything on the straight and narrow. There are certain things you couldn't do. There are certain things you dare not even think or dream about doing, or even think of thinking about doing. So the boundaries were very clear. That doesn't mean we didn't have fun. That we were allowed to be kids, and unlike, I hate to say this, unlike maybe the kids today, we didn't grow up too quickly. I don't know if sometimes the kids today are missing childhood, and therefore they don't have the same appreciation of the responsibilities of adulthood. That's my own take on it. I could be wrong.
Any sisters? Any sisters?
Two sisters.
Two sisters. And so 4 of you.
There's 4 of us.
All right. So having grown up with four of you, 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and you gravitated to the family business. Initially when you started, did you have any visions of what you wanted Continental Bakery to be?
No. I started spending time in the plant before I could remember. My earliest memories, I knew I was here. I was here when we still had a pastry shop, for example, that my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother ran. And that continued into, I would say, about the late 60s, and that was discontinued. I think it was discontinued because we had gone on to concentrate on probably what is known as wholesale baking, where we ran a route system. That was a great concentration. That was real growth to the company too, because we concentrated getting the products right across the island. I remember being in there. I remember watching my grandmother bake cakes. I remember her doing it in the pastry shop where she made eclairs. I think at a very young age I knew how to pipe an eclair, because eclair is something you actually pipe out a pastry bag. And probably for every 12 I helped pipe, I probably ate 6 when I came out of the oven. So I wasn't good for the company. I'll eat in the profits before they were made. But at about 12 or 13, I can't remember exactly when, I probably had my first, shall we say, responsibility in the bread plant. And I was watching the oven, the hard oven, specifically the hard oven. It wasn't as mechanized, it didn't have as good a control on it. You had to watch your speeds, monitor your temperatures in the zone, because it's a big oven, it's about 120 feet long.
Wow.
And it has different zones, and you monitor those, and then at the back of the oven, where the bread came out, it went to the automatic depanner, which was nearly as good as the system we have now. You continue to have to watch that, because you could get pans jamming in it, and if it jammed, you need to get it out of there quickly, turn it off, because the bread would keep coming out of the oven irrespective of whether the depanner was working or not. So that was probably my first real responsibility, and I enjoyed that. And it was just part of my upbringing. It was a natural course of things for me, certainly for myself. Then with the merger of our company and Continental Baking Company of the States, IT&T, they came and they bought into our family's business as a minor shareholder. A whole new technology came to us. We became aware of things of management systems, distribution systems, and we started making Hostess cakes, Twinkies, and the related products on the Hostess line. That was in late 1960s, early 1970s, we started making that. And I spent time on that line when I wasn't in school. I came home, I'd spend the time on that line.
So the merger happened in the 60s, right? And as you indicated, the merger basically changed things somewhat.
Well, it brought new technology to us. It afforded certainly me the opportunity to literally live in a Continental plant anytime I was in the States. I could get permission to go to any Continental Baking Company plant. And that is, that is a priceless experience. Absolutely priceless.
Elaborate on that for me, because that must have been one of the best experiences you had in business.
Yeah.
I mean, when you saw what was happening here in Jamaica in your own family business, and you were given the opportunity to, you know, to look at what they have there, how did it change your perspective on this business?
Well, we were doing the same things that they were doing, with just a smaller scale.
Smaller scale.
They were far more automated. They were a decade ahead of us, probably, in machinery. And what was very interesting is the way they managed their distribution systems, how the supervisory staff would go out every day with the salesmen, interact with the customers. It was all part of doing distribution of bread the right way.
So I imagine that based on what you saw, you got so engulfed in the business that really your career would have been, whatever you studied at school would have been shifting towards the business. Am I correct in that regard?
Well, what I studied at school was geared towards basically understanding the business side and of the business.
Okay. So
what little I studied. Remember I told you about school and the squandered education.
Yeah. All right. So.
But I drank a lot of beer.
Oh
Yes. I majored. No, I can't afford that anymore.
All right. So Continental bought into the family business, and technology came. Now, since technology came, how did that enable you to replicate and to grow this business to what it is now today? Explain the thrust across Jamaica and how your company started to become that much more involved in the Jamaican landscape.
Yeah, I think it was a natural extension of time. You know, I have just a couple of simple mantras I deal with. I try and take the act of business and the operational business and break it down as follows. You have two great assets in your business. You have a customer base, that's your single greatest asset, and then you have the staff. You take care of your customer base, you take care of your staff, and everything else will take care of itself. In other words, you make every decision based on how do you serve the customer better. Or how do I get a better product to you on a consistent basis? Then you train your delivery staff, you train your manufacturing staff, because you want the same quality of bread every day. You want a consistent quality from us. You, as a matter of fact, as a consumer, you should demand it, not just expect it. I think we're long past expectations, it's not demand now. And it is our obligation to deliver that quality to you every time we deliver, which should be almost every day. Now, when you take those two simple thoughts, it takes the clutter out of everything.
Make it simple and easy.
As simple as possible.
Now, tell the viewers who will be watching this interview about how much bread the capacity of this company now to produce for the island of Jamaica. And tell us a little bit about.
Well, currently we do over 500,000 loaves a week between hard dough and our varieties. Do we have much more capacity? I would imagine it depends, because the volume is not the same on Tuesday as it is on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. There's some days when it's you have very, very long days in here, and some days where you have on their 8-hour days. But that's the nature of the business we're in. And on the really long days, leading up to, let's say leading up to Christmas Eve, you have very long days, because you can't make a bread a week ahead and hold it in inventory. That's not the idea of it. So you try and make everything for the market as late as possible, so you can have as fresh a product as possible out there. The idea of sending a 2-day-old bread on the market is not an option here. It's not something we don't want to do unless we absolutely find ourselves in a situation where we have to. A situation would be there is a warning of an impending hurricane, tropical storm. Then we'd bake. Now, then you might get a bread that wasn't made the day before or the night before you bought in the supermarket. You might have it that was made the morning before, because we need the extra time now to accumulate for that demand. But it is our policy to bake as late as possible for delivery.
Now, the plant, is the plant only concentrated here at Havertry, or you have other plants in Jamaica?
My brother Kevin has a plant in Mandeville.
Mm-hmm.
And he manufactures what we call a round bun, we call it penny bun.
Mm-hmm.
And he does hamburger, hot dog, and dinner rolls up there. That's what he manufactures. I manufacture everything else here in Halfway Tree, and I ship to him, and he ships the small buns and the dinner rolls, hamburger, hot dog rolls to us.
Wow. Now, tell us a little bit about your distribution network, because you must have a very extensive distribution network to be able to get.
I think between Kevin and myself, we're close to 200 trucks. We have 121 sales vehicles based here at Halfway Tree at this plant, and the rest of them are scattered between Mandeville, St. Anne's Bay, Montego Bay.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So everything that we see on the market, bread and whatever it is, comes from either here or from Mandeville.
That's correct. That's correct.
Oh. All right. So with that network of vehicles and so on, there must be some challenges. What are the major challenges that you face? The gas prices, electricity bills. Tell us a little bit about that. The challenges that you face as a business person.
The challenges with that network, with the trucks specifically, conditions of the road conditions. That's our single greatest challenge.
Spending a lot of money on repairs and.
We spend more than we normally would have. And those repairs are not the labor component, the Jamaican labor component. Those repairs are unfortunately the repairs that require the importation of spare parts. So those are the ones that to me are the greatest challenge that we face. Not a personal challenge by any stretch of the imagination. You know, we have this ongoing idea that Jamaican workers are distant. Jamaican workers are fine. Jamaican managers must manage well. Nobody blame the worker. Don't blame the worker. Blame the management. Hold them accountable.
You've got a very interesting concept.
No, it's a right concept.
Yeah.
It's a right concept. Those who are hired to make a difference must make a difference.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody in the manufacturing sector, you're a part of the manufacturing sector, obviously. We talk to you when I do these interviews. People say, "Well, one of my challenges are the high cost of electricity." Now, tell us a little bit about your plant. I mean, how efficient is it in terms of dealing with the struggles you have with possibly the high cost of fuel to run your plant?
Well, let's break down the energy for this plant into two components. On the electricity side, there are something called efficiencies of usage, and we are about a 0.99 factor, which is as good as we can get. Is electricity expensive? Yes, it is. It is. We're currently running over $15 million a month in this plant, but our fuel bill is much more than that. Our fuel bill is in the 30s, because that's where most of our energy is used in the baking of the products. It is expensive, but I've seen worse. I've seen much worse. I've seen much worse where energy prices are concerned. The Eastern Caribbean, for example, is far more expensive.
Wow. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the competition. This is an industry that is dynamic. You have quite a lot of competition in the marketplace. What distinguishes National Bakery from the competition?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this much. I will try and raise the bar continually on our staff. I will insist that our customers remain number one in our thoughts. Remember what I said to you? Think of your customer first. And we'll have to just make sure that, look, being number one does not mean you can relax. Being number one only gives you the responsibility of maintaining it. It also brings other responsibilities and expectations from the Jamaican public. And I said, and rightly so. We have asked for their trust with our products, and we must deliver on that trust. And that is what will keep us fighting. Will it keep us number one? I hope so. I hope so.
The baking industry has particular needs. So from time to time, the input costs may result in the variation in terms of prices, stuff like that. When you look at the state of the economy, the inflation costs and all these sort of things, how difficult is it to run a massive business like
But the bakery business, to begin with, the basic, and we're a basic food bakery business, or the most of our production is based on, comprises bread, crackers, and bun. That is a low margin business. It depends on volume for you to survive. It's a low margin. And we are not retailers. We wholesale our products, we deliver them. So we incur costs that many other bakers might not have. And that is us to transport it to Montego Bay, for example, get it back on a truck over there, run a distribution network in Montego Bay, salaries, expenses, the overheads, the attendant overheads. As a matter of fact, I think they have a garage down there, so you have to maintain the vehicles down there. Everything is not done in one place. Having said that, we overcome that by sheer volume. And it's the volumes, and is it the term economy of scale that makes it possible for us to do that. Because at this moment, I think, I haven't checked it recently, but retailer for retail, in other words, a pound of bread in hard bread in New York City versus a pound of bread here, we're probably only about 72% or 69% of the retail price. So we've still, as an industry, a Jamaican industry, managed to keep the price of that bread down to the public.
So, with all that you've been putting, the input costs and so on, and you just indicated that the margin is sometimes a little bit small, give me an indication of how much customers you serve on a weekly basis. Because
okay.
It seems to me that
on our, what we call our route system or distribution system out of this halfway tree location, I think we're about 11,000 different customers. Anywhere from a big supermarket down to, you know, the vendors on the side of the road.
How do you manage that sort of thing? Because when I look at the complexity of your operation, what you're doing is that you sell it to the supermarket, let's say you sell to Jones or somebody else, and then you sell it to a small person that has a little bread shop at the corner. How do you manage to make sure that everybody is maintained in a timely manner? And this is a product that will get stale if it doesn't get to you in time.
Oh yes, it had that best before. A very short shelf life. It's a matter of constructing your routes and managing your routes and having really great sales staff, good people. Fitzroy, I have a story. After the hurricane, not this one, the one before, I don't remember the names of them anymore, they're so off now. The bridge at Harborview went. We had sales contractors that drove through the junction, around the point, and came back to Bull Bay to service them. And they did it for 6 or 8 weeks straight.
Wow.
Now, that is dedication, that is commitment. Because when we asked the guys, when we found out about it, we said, what are you guys doing? They said, no, I promised them we'd do it. So every morning they drove all the way across the junction, along the north coast, out to Moran Point, and came back to Bull Bay and Yalas to make sure the people had bread. That I can't teach people. We can say it is part of our culture here, but somebody has to want to do that. And it's the wanting that will keep us ahead of everyone else. And it is that wanting that ensures that Miss Mary and her corner shop is getting the same service as the big supermarkets uptown Kingston.
What's the total amount of staff that you have in the entire operation?
They're what we call the family count here at Halfway Tree. Right now it's about 790. Right here.
Just in Halfway Tree?
Just Halfway Tree.
What about the others?
I think island-wide we're close to 1,200. No. About 1,100.
With this operation so dynamic and moving forward, how do you keep your staff motivated?
I don't know. You're asking me to to the university thing and say, well, we do this. I don't know. I think what we've taken on in here is a culture that, one, we tell them the truth. We share the problems with them. Now, if we can't tell them everything, then we won't tell them, but we won't lie. And there's a great trust between us. I trust them and they trust us, the management of the company. That alone is motivation, you know.
Yeah.
And the other commitment we have for them, they know it's unequivocal. We work, we push forward, and we always try to better their lot in life. Because I truly believe that when Jamaica being Jamaica and the conditions being what they are in our country, our reality is that someone comes here to National to work with us, and they see it as a way to better their life, to better their life of the lives of their children, their families. And I think a fair exchange. You do what is asked of you here, and we must take the responsibility of making sure you're properly looked after at that point. And we try and do that. And it's not something that is written and etched in stone. It's something we do as a matter of culture. My father did the same thing, and it's a culture. You can't teach that part.
Do you think, and I'm going to ask you a very pointed question in this regard, because I've been listening to you intently on some of the issues, sir. Do you think that your Chinese heritage informs in any way how you do business?
Only in that, I don't know if you're Chinese heritage, but or I came out of a family background where it promoted that type of thought. It promoted the thought. And my dad had his own record of public service in the country. I'm proud to say I have had the opportunity to serve the country on a government board, probably one of the high points of my life, certainly. And it's one of these intangibles that, again, we can't say it was written or it was handed down it came on as a legacy on the unspoken word. That's the best way for me to put it.
Wow. Now, as somebody who is so busy in doing, making a mark for yourself in this country, how do you balance your business with your personal life? It must be a challenge for you.
No.
It isn't?
This is my personal life right here. This is my personal life. I'm living my dream. You know, how many people can say that?
True. Not many.
I'm living my dream. I walk in the plant every day and see a whole bunch of people that some of them I've known for all my life. We have Hubert Young here, who was here before I was born.
Wow.
So he's been here for 60 years and 3 months. We have a lot of people here who have known me since I was a teenager, a child. So every day I come to work, I'm coming home. And I leave my yard and I come home. So there's never a time I don't look forward to coming to work. So there's no need to balance this thing. And because we don't have issues, we rarely have issues in this plant of a personnel nature. I mean, if it's right, I can't remember having one. We had some argument between a couple of members of the staff 2-3 years ago. It's a personal between them. We don't, apart from that, we don't have issues, because if you manage well and you care about the people who you work with, issues won't arise, you know. Not on in any way we have to worry about it. There's usually small issues in people's lives. Or, you know, how do we know that somebody's having a hard time with a sick mom or a sick father, and the pressure of that versus, in addition to looking after their own kids? When that's brought to bear on them, sometimes it's tough. And I encourage an open dialogue, and at that point, if we can do nothing else but offer encouragement and support, then we will. But if we can do something that's tangible, we also do that too.
Brilliant. Now, in terms of your kids and family, how many children do you have?
I have 3.
Wow.
I have a boy and 2 girls.
In the family business as well?
Well, Craig is currently down in St. Lucia. He went down at the request of the hotel general manager. He needed some help down there, so he'll be down there for, he might not like to hear this, but he'll be down there for a couple more months. Put it this way, he will not see Jamaica Carnival this year.
No.
Certainly not in Jamaica.
Okay.
You can watch it on the Caribbean News Channel.
Yes, you can. What about the two daughters?
Rachel is in her last year of university and she wants to go into medical school.
Okay.
And the youngest, well, she's 16, so she has a little ways to go yet.
Oh, she can't get immersed yet
No,
in the business?
No.
Okay, great. Now, let's talk a little bit about your other interests, because that's also part of you. You also have an interest in a hotel in the Caribbean. Tell us about that.
Challenge. Challenging.
You know, it's interesting for me to think about when you thought about diversifying, so to speak, as all business people do. Why hotel?
Because the family is already involved in them, so I could get a lot of input from them, guidance.
Okay. So, because your brother is, immersed in the hotel industry as well, it's easier for you to do that because you can get the help. Tell us about when you started to deal with this, to purchase this property, and what the challenges were and where it's at now.
Well, to acquire and the government agreements in St. Lucia was no challenge at all. I'll be brutally frank with you. The government down there moved faster than we did.
Wow.
In agreeing and putting it through. The challenge in St. Lucia is that the St. Lucian workforce is not accustomed to hospitality. Jamaica is a very mature destination comparatively. So to change the way things were done back then to the way they are now has been a constant training program, service, because I will say this, and I have a couple more hoteliers that will stand beside me on this one. The best service in the Caribbean is right here.
Wow.
The best service in the Caribbean takes place right here in the island of Jamaica. And I need for us to understand what we have here. And I need for us as a nation to use that to our advantage. Service, right? We're the best staff. We also have the hardest working staff.
Wow. Interesting.
In spite of what you might hear, hardest working staff right here.
Now, how many rooms does this hotel have? What's the name of the hotel? Just a little bit about it.
Name is Coconut Bay Resort and Spa, and we have 250 rooms. We're in View Fort in the southern side of St. Lucia.
And that market, how developed is it? You alluded to it that it's not as mature as the Jamaica.
No, it's not as mature. In other words, it doesn't have the competitive airlift that Jamaica has. Jamaica is a great destination, not only because it's Jamaica, because the airlines compete to come here. So we have sensible fares. Sensible might be a relative term, but we have sensible fares on a year-round basis. St. Lucia is not as developed. They don't have the airlift. If you don't have any seats, then the price of the seat automatically go up. Out of Miami to St. Lucia is at least twice the price of Miami to Jamaica.
And your target, obviously, is the North American market.
No, actually, St. Lucia historically has been a good market for the UK. So we work with the tour operators in the United Kingdom, Canada, and the United States.
How's the business going?
Not bad. Not bad. Expenses are prohibitive, which curtails any idea of profit. Literally.
What's your forecast for this business? Because if it's a young market, there's a potential of growth. When you look at the Eastern Caribbean and the network of islands there, once the market develops to the point where it interests potential.
The potential of this in my view, the potential of the tourism business in the Eastern Caribbean is curtailed only by the understanding, the willingness to understand by the respective authorities. I don't think there's the same understanding of tourism and all that it can do for us in the Eastern Caribbean as, say, the Bahamas understand it, Barbados understand it, the islands, the other islands, the Spanish-speaking islands, the Dominican Republic gets it, Puerto Rico gets it, Jamaica gets it, Cayman certainly gets it. And then we have this little place over on the Western Gulf, it's called Cancun, and they get it.
Very well.
Very, very well.
Right.
Very well.
So St. Lucia might be a little bit tough now, but what is your thought on the future going forward? Because if you've invested so much, you're expecting to recoup, and how do you plan to navigate the water, so to speak, to ensure that you get maximum return for your dollar?
Well, we keep working with the government and the authorities down there in the tourist board. Quite frankly, when our family does anything, it's never for short or medium term. We only think long term. So I'm comfortable. I mean, the hotel is not a drain now by any stretch. It is not a profitable entity. But look at it this way. In as much as we, as a family, probably employ over 400,000 Jamaicans. 4,000 Jamaicans here. Down there, I've been able to employ 300 people. So in that, if you think of yourself as a true Jamaican or somebody, a Caribbean person, then you know that's what challenges are, the challenge or various territories. We don't have good employment opportunities. So that is a certain satisfaction. A happy guest is a great satisfaction. That's what we aim for. Remember, think of the customer first. You go back. Right.
Do you plan to go deeper into this tourism business, expanding more into more hotels and so
Well, the property itself has room for expansion. So if an expansion takes place, it will be there. Do I plan to go deeper into other territories or other islands? No. My plans are to grow our English operation. We already have a national representative in England. We have our own distribution system, and we're going to concentrate on growing that now.
Well, tell me about that, because for the Jamaicans who don't know much about that side of the business, it would be phenomenal to explain to me the genesis of that operation in England and what it has done for your company.
Okay. We've had a Hannatown distributor, HTB, that's one of our brands, over there for about 20 years. And he continues to do a good job for us. But he wasn't able to take on the full range of our products. So we decided to set up our own national branded distribution system in London. And we struggled.
Is it a bakery setting?
No, it's not a bakery.
Okay.
It's a warehouse, and we ship from here.
Okay.
We like to say everything in that warehouse comes from yard, and fresh from yard too. So we have a warehouse unit, and we run our vehicles out of that, just like we run our vehicles out of here. And we have the same policies of sales and delivery.
What's the difference between the UK market and Jamaican market? How different is it to operate in the market and to make it a success?
You know the song New York, New York? If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. If we can make it there, we can make it anywhere. It is not as friendly in that, for example, if you take your truck and park it on the high street for 30 seconds, you're going to get a £50 ticket.
Wow.
And because it is such a developed area, so populated, it's tough to even deliver a loaf of bread. But if it's right, the other bakeries are doing it. So we will do it exactly, and we're going to outdo them.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
in other words, the people who we compete with face the same challenges. So we'll just see how they do it.
So, if you're shipping products from Jamaica to the UK, it takes a while to get here. How do you ensure the bread is fresh and nice for somebody who wants it?
We freeze the bread.
Okay.
Bun, the bun is not a problem. The bun will get over there 9 days transit time and be fine.
Wow. Now, having accomplished so much in your bakery business and now foraying into the hotel business, for a young person who has, thoughts and plans of going into business, what would you say to them as somebody who has seen it all?
I wish I had a simple answer to that, but the reality is that the shortage of the ability to finance ventures like these, which is something the nation has to address, I think, to build these small and medium enterprises. The only thing I can tell them is that if you're not totally committed to what you're doing, don't waste time. The world is not waiting for anyone today. There's no half good stuff. You can get away with being almost for a while, but you won't get away with it forever. You have too much competition. Too much competition. My father told the four of us, the four kids, about 25 years ago, I think it was, he said, in the future, your competition will not come from anybody who lives here. In other words, his meaning was the competition will be from overseas. And that's how the trade agreements were rolled out, and that's a reality of how it is. So if you're going to do it very, very well. If you're going to build a plant tomorrow, for example, a processing plant, take the extra capital and put it into a FDA-approved plant, if that's where your market is, an ISO-approved plant, HACCP-approved from day one. Don't have situations where you're trying to do it after you start because you didn't want to spend extra money to do it. Find a way to do it, because if you don't, you're going to be sorry. You're going to be sorry. Wow. We have an old plant here, and it's a constant struggle to keep it up to scratch. I mean, but it is what it is, and we have to deal with what we have.
Now, looking at...
And, I'm sorry, be financially prudent.
How do you do that?
In simple ease, don't spend what you don't have.
You know, one of the challenges for some business people, and it's good that we're having this discussion, because sometimes persons have started where they don't want to recapitalize and to continue. You know, you may start a business and you reach a particular point, but sometimes it's difficult to move beyond that point to the next level. Because, as you mentioned, there's a lack of funding and, you know, all the challenges that we face in Jamaica. What are some of the suggestions you would have for a small person who started the business, great idea, prospects are nice down the road, but doesn't necessarily understand how to move that business forward?
He's going to have to get help. He's going to have to get help. There's no shortage of people that can help him. I mean, the guidance is there. You have to take it and apply it as it relates to individual businesses.
In wrapping up this interview, we have to look at your prospects going forward for the future. Mm-hmm. When you sit here at the helm of this company and you think about 10, 15 years down the road, are there any plans that you have in terms of possible expansion in the specific in the baking industry mm-hmm. that you would want to take on to further cement your mastery of this market, so to speak?
We have a space constraint problem here at this Halfway Tree location. I would ideally like to move our distribution system initially to a larger location, and maybe followed in time by a new factory.
Any ideas? We want to get the store first.
Ideally, ferry.
Ferry.
Yeah.
Also, you're one of those who are looking positively at the new economic zone that the government has planned.
Absolutely. I'm looking at it. I need a space. I need a lot of space because we have a lot of vehicles that require space. But also, I don't just want to build a plant out there. I want to build something for my staff to be able to enjoy themselves. We don't have the ability to do that here. I don't have space for a netball court. I don't have space for a mini soccer field or two, a badminton court, a little exercise room. And that's really important. I mean, my staff deserve it. Yeah. Believe me. But even more important, they understand why we don't have it. But that doesn't matter. I'd still like to create that for them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I'd like to create it close to where they work. Mm-hmm. Because if you stay here and you put it 5 miles away, it's really difficult for them to get back and forth.
Have you been in discussions with the government? You said that you have served on boards.
No. The boards I served on, the only board I served on was the Exim Bank.
That's a good board to serve on.
I was very, very honored by being asked to chair the bank. And like I said, it was probably one of the highlights of my life, being able to do it. It was very rewarding, very satisfying.
I'm going to come back to that. But I want to touch base with you on the economic zone that
I haven't heard any. I think Minister Hilton currently is trying to lay it in a concrete fashion. And when it all come together, I don't think it makes sense to ask if everything hasn't been laid out yet. But that's where I'd like to go.
All right, let's talk about the Exim Bank. You chaired the Exim Bank sometime. Tell us about because a lot of Jamaicans don't necessarily use the Exim Bank. The regular Jamaicans, the ordinary man in the street, it's not the normal bank, so to speak, or export bank. For those Jamaicans who are in business and who want to export and so on, they would have need for an Exim Bank. Tell us about what the Exim Bank can do for Jamaicans, and what you would like to see the Exim Bank do more of.
Okay.
In terms of helping to lift the economy.
Well, the answer is the same. What I'd like to see do more of is what it can do for Jamaica. I'd like to see the Exim have a little bit more, be capitalized to a higher level, so it can access more funds. Right now, certainly when I left Exim, I demitted office, we had just about loaned everything that we had. And it's a good way for the company to build the small and medium enterprises, small medium enterprises, because Exim Bank operates a development bank for choice. So therefore, it probably looks at risk a little differently than a commercial bank can. I mean, let's face it, the commercial banks are sitting there, they have their shareholders to think about. Exim Bank doesn't have to have the same level of profit. Exim Jamaica, however, is not part of the government's budget. So it has to make enough profit to cover its operational costs, to pay its salaries. But it is not expected, I would think, that it would be a huge profit maker for the public coffers. Because of its nature, it is easier for small investors to go there. And the Exim staff, certainly the staff that worked with me when I was there, and they're still there, are used to babysitting people, helping them more, because they acted a development role. I think it's a great vehicle to move forward. I understand all the problems that the government faces in funding Exim or ensuring there's more funds. But at the same time, I encourage that they look in that direction whenever and wherever possible. Because you have good people there who understand development banking, and please, we mustn't confuse commercial banking and development banking. They're two different things.
Excellent. Now, in wrapping up this interview, we want to look at the recent announcement yesterday of the JDX2. You're in the financial sector. Certainly, you have you're part of the Exim Bank, and obviously, it would impact you in some way. The whole question of having a JDX2. What's your impression of the economy first of all, and the idea that the government had to go to the financial sector yet again to...
All right, let me remember, I was part of Exim. I no longer... I think I break it down as simply as I can, because it has to be simple or I won't understand it. I think the government came to the people of Jamaica last night and asked them to be cooperative. And I don't think they have to worry about that part. I think they asked the holders of the government debt to understand their situation. I think by and large the Jamaican people are going to say, okay. But what I don't think should happen is that we have to ask for a third one. And so therefore, I've held to this for a long time. I think we need to get on with the business of our business. And I'm speaking on an individual basis from a private sector point of view, or certainly my private sector point of view. Let's not wait for the government to do all these things. Let us go on and build our businesses, because we can't be any worse off if we do that. Let us build export capability in this country. That's one sure way out of our situation. That is one great way to create some jobs. We have to look to different types of industries. Obviously, everybody can't grow peppers, everybody can't sell buns abroad, everybody can't sell hardware abroad. So we must look at the industries that we can be successful at. And unfortunately, we must look carefully so we pick winners. Because we don't have time, we don't have the luxury of time. If we do that, we'll be just fine as a country. And the other thing, we need to tell the Jamaican people the truth. We mustn't have a fear that they don't understand. They do understand. This is the most understanding country. It has to be. Because when you look at the volatility in other parts of the world, for situations which are nowhere near as critical as ours are, you have to say to yourself, wow, what a country we have here. What a people we have understanding. And we need to keep our public at large informed so they know where we're going. I mean, the government can't have a policy and not keep informing us about what they want. Because then we, as a public, if the government lays out a good industrial policy, for example, manufacturing policy, informs us about it and we don't do anything about it, then we don't have nobody else to blame but ourselves. Because we can't ask the government to come and run it for us. I don't think they want to. I think they should do things like cutting down the bureaucracy, making life a little easier when you want to export, even when you want to import. You have to look at things that will keep us very competitive against the Trinidadians. The Trinidadians, for example, process and send peanuts up here in a snack food form. But they get the peanuts in duty-free and they ship it up here. If we have to pay duties at our port here, I can't compete with them. There's no way I can compete with them.
Wow.
So we have to make up our mind where it is we are, what is it we want to do. Now, if it is a matter of the government is afraid of someone like myself importing 5 tons of peanuts and then selling them to other people to process, then I must pay the price for having done so. That's the regulatory process that must kick in and deal with us for doing it. But provided I'm doing what I say and converting it and packaging for retail sale and consumer sale, then I should be allowed to bring that raw material in.
You mentioned Trinidad. A lot of the business people that I have talked to in this program tend to have a problem getting into the Trinidadian market. It's a tough market in terms of how things are. Do you export to the Caribbean and do you have that issue?
We're going to start exporting to the Caribbean. Is it going to be tough? I imagine in a couple of the islands it's going to be not tough.
How soon are you
impossible.
planning to export?
Impossible. It's going to be impossible. It will be made impossible because they're looking after their own. I don't think I'm off base by saying that. I might be criticized, but that's all right. I'm a big boy. I think the Jamaican exporters had a hard time in Trinidad. There are thousands of tales. The Jamaica Manufacturers Association can reel them off for you ad nauseum. And they're real. It's not some contrived thing that we've come up with. But I suppose the Jamaican manufacturer could capture the Jamaican market. Wouldn't we be in better shape now?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, then it's our job to compete locally. And I think it is a job of government to make sure that we can compete on a level playing field. If we can't even compete on the fact that Trinidad has very, very cheap energy costs, then lower the tariffs or get rid of any tariffs for us to compete. You can't tax us on something that is coming in to manufacture while the Trinidadian government doesn't tax, because Trinidad does not grow peanuts. And I'm using peanuts as a single example.
How soon do you start? You think you want to start?
No, they don't real timeline on that because, as I said, it's a little bit more critical in the UK right now because that's a more mature situation, and we as I said, we're trying to expand into Birmingham this year.
All right, tell us about the Birmingham project.
Can't tell you. We don't have enough. We know we're gonna probably run 2 routes in Birmingham, 7 in London, Greater London. Birmingham is just an extension of London, much smaller warehouse, and just the same route system that looks after the customers, getting it out to the stores.
Final question. With all this that you do, you have interest in London, you have here, you're having a hotel in St. Lucia. How do you relax? What do you do for fun? Do you know, because tell me, you're a fun-loving guy.
Greatest relaxation for the last 12 months has been a project called Crayons Count.
Called what?
Crayons Count. That is where we undertook to create kits for basic school learning. And we're able to get 2,300 schools, basic schools, kits when the school year started. That was relaxation for me. That Diaka Morrison brought the idea, and we talked about it, and it just grew out of that. And that to me was, again, very satisfying, a lot of fun. And I just hope that we will have contributed something towards building the country by improving a lot for the basic school kids. We spent $41 million or $42 million last year, and we're committed to $55 million this year.
Wow.
Expanding.
Explain that project to me.
It's simple. It's we put together some basic school kits and crayons, simple as it seems, with balls, puzzles, books, shapes, building blocks, things that we probably take for granted, but a lot of basic schools don't have. So therefore, if you don't have that, the children never develop certain motor skills, writing, reading skills, arithmetic. For example, I didn't understand that a child is much more, it's much easier for a child to learn what 3 and 3 is, what a 6 is, if they color that 6 in. I would never have thought of something like that. But that's a fact, and that's what the basic school education people tell us. So we undertook that. That was my fun last year. I had a lot of fun planning it, and it was a good time. And I really hope it makes a difference. I'm committed to seeing it this year. I'm committed to next year already, because I really think that if we don't start our kids off on the right footing, now that's 3 years old, you know, from 3 to 8 is the critical years, and parents must start to understand that in the country. The 3 to 8 years are critical. That's when you develop all the skills that enable you to learn in the future. Because if you don't have a good education from 3 to 8, then all the high school and university education is going to be more difficult for you. And you probably won't understand enough to really take full advantage of what's available to you. And that is where we're putting our money.
That's it for Spotlight feature. I'm your host, Fitzroy Prendergast. We of course brought you an extensive interview with Mr. Gary Hendrickson, the chairman of Continental Baking Company Limited. Join us next time for another Spotlight program.